But as you're saying this, I'm thinking of something very specifically that Linda Sarsour, who I'm sure you're no...
I spent an evening with Linda Sarsour in Brooklyn.
Really?
Yeah, a couple of years ago.
How did that go before I tell you my little anecdote?
I don't think we got on roaringly. I sensed some sexual tension, actually. There was a bit of sexual tension in the room. Unavoidable. But no, the fact is, actually, we're asked to debate the Kroc phantom word Islamophobia at the Brooklyn Art Museum, and I like a challenge. And I think our mutual friend Ayaan Hirsi Ali was also meant to be there. But various things happened. The Garland shooting happened, and it was decided it wasn't safe for Ayaan. I still did it and things. But yeah, the whole thing, it started off with the other side sort of giggling about the fact that Ayaan couldn't even turn up, they were sort of using it against her. And
as if Ayaan's afraid of anybody.
Yeah, I encountered Linda Sarsour before she became, as it were, infamous. And I thought she was a very nasty, very bitter, very un-American, actually. I just say that because she knows, like all demagogues, how to introduce herself. And introduce herself as a sort of proud Brooklynite, a proud American, a proud Palestinian, etc., etc. I thought in an interesting order. But it was clear that she sort of really hated America, or at least hates the America that exists currently, because it was me that ended up having to explain to the audience that, for instance, the New York police don't just go around persecuting Muslims. It's just a willful misrepresentation of the American authorities at every turn. Mm-hmm. So I thought she was very dishonest, very unpleasant. But I mean, I've come across her type all my life.
Yeah, and the only reason I mention her is because of what you said previously, which really was about assimilation. That the whole point of America is to assimilate. Yeah. And I don't know if you saw that speech she gave about 2 months ago where she called for jihad, and then suddenly the left was defending the word jihad, and the white supremacists in the White House and all that. But I thought the key part of it, put jihad aside, put white supremacy aside, the key part was when she said, we're not here to assimilate.
Yes.
I thought, that is the antithesis of the American project. This amazing melting pot that we have, where we've done, for the most part, multiculturalism right, where Europe has failed in a lot of ways, and she was saying no.
No, absolutely.
Not. And I thought that was more dangerous than the other stuff.
Absolutely, of course. I mean, as you say, but put aside the fantastical idea that what she was suggesting was, you sort of have a jihad by kind of going and just really struggling in front of a Jew somewhere. Like, I'm just struggling in front of this Israeli. It's just one having a turmoil. This is what I recognized the night we met. I mean, she really doesn't like this country. By the way, I mean, we all have a problem about that. It's what you do about that. It seems to me she's a sort of very rabid sectarian sort of Palestinian nationalist who happens to live in Brooklyn. But, I mean, really what you do about it is that people identified that, recognized it, and called it out for what it is, and there just aren't very many people who do that still. I mean, we all take sort of baby steps on this, don't we? As you say, you end up with the left sort of defending, well, she probably meant this, and why don't you just say, look, she's not speaking as a critic of our society who wants to sort of mildly improve it. She's speaking as an opponent of our society because she doesn't like it. Mm-hmm. Now, I've encountered this, I say, all my life in my opponents, and the very close enemies I've made in Britain and across Europe, a certain type of person of that ilk who clearly speaks as an opponent of the society. They don't like it. And, of course, among other things, all you can do is point out then is to say, amazing you're here, really, isn't it?
One of the left's favorite activists is now calling for jihad against President Trump. How nice. Linda Sarsour, the Islamophobia hustler who helped organize, remember that anti-Trump women's march on Washington, is now under fire for comments she made at the annual Islamic Society of North America convention in Chicago. Watch this.
I hope that when we stand up to those who oppress our communities, that Allah accepts from us that as a form of jihad, that we are struggling against tyrants and rulers, not only abroad in the Middle East or in the other side of the world, but here in these United States of America, where you have fascists and white supremacists and Islamophobes reigning in the White House. Our number one and top priority is to protect and defend our communities. It is not to assimilate and to please any other people in authority. Our top priority, even higher than all those priorities, is to please Allah and only Allah.
Remember, this is the same Linda Sarsour that the Obama administration identified as a, quote, champion of change. Isn't that sweet? Joining us now is the founder of Act for America, Brigitte Gabriel, and from the Islamic House of Wisdom, Imam Muhammad Ali Elahi. It's great to see both of you. Let's start with you, Imam Elahi. Wow, for her to say in that clip, basically our goal is not to assimilate. We don't answer to any push for assimilation. We answer to the greater calling of Allah. She uses the word jihad, and I understand for Muslims that can mean striving and trying and struggling, but for most Americans to hear jihad, it has a different connotation. She understands that clearly. She's a sophisticated player. Do you defend what she said about this president and really about this country in that soundbite?
Jihad is an Arabic word mentioned both in the Quran and the Bible. Bridget, she is from Lebanon. She knows Arabic, and she knows this word is mentioned also in the Bible. If you leave it for us, jihad means to be a better person, more honest, more truthful, and more trustworthy. But of course, if you leave this jihad for ISIS, leave the Quran for ISIS or Bible for KKK, they have different interpretation of it. I'm not representing for Linda, but I think she is expressing her frustration when we have a president that he is putting ban on 6 countries that they are victims of terrorism and rewarding the biggest founders of terrorism in the world.
Let me guess.
That brings frustration. It's obvious.
Okay. Imam, here's what doesn't go over well with most Americans, and then I'm going to get to Brigitte. Linda Sarsour getting up there and saying the fascist, Islamophobe, white supremacists in the Oval Office. That is so purposefully incendiary. And I would say if he weren't the president of the United States, he could sue.
One of the big winners in this brave new political environment is Linda Sarsour. She's a left-wing activist. She's now the face of Muslim identity politics in America. Of course, the Democratic Party loves her. But what does she actually believe? Assess it for yourself.
Respect the presidency, but I will not respect this president.
Our number one and top priority is to protect and defend our communities. It is not to assimilate and to please any other people in authority. I hope that we, when we stand up to those who oppress our communities, that Allah accepts from us that as a form of jihad, that we are struggling against tyrants and rulers, not only abroad in the Middle East or in the other side of the world, but here in these United States of America, where you have fascists and white supremacists and Islamophobes reigning in the White House.
Arguing against assimilation. Why can't Democrats find a Muslim mascot who is not a total extremist? They probably could if they tried.